The XXL 2024 Freshman List is officially out, and we gotta talk about it. Let's get into who made the 2024 class. I want to break down some of the history of the list and artists who passed on the list, who shouldn't have. And I want to give you a little bit of insider information on how this list is really put together. What's up? I'm Sowmya. I'm a music journalist and author. And in the past, I have contributed to XXL magazine. And in this channel, we talk about all things hip hop and the music industry. If that sounds good to you, make sure to hit like and subscribe. So let's take a look at the 2024 Freshman List. Every year, it's kind of a running joke when the 2024 Freshman List comes out and everyone on social media says, who is that? And the fewer and fewer artists you know that you're hitting like old head territory in hip hop. So I counted about 9 artists that I knew by name. So go through the list. Let me know if you could beat more than 9. Let me know in the comments if you can beat my 9. So looking at this list, some of the names we knew were going to be on the list. Batz, I did a whole video about him. I'll link it in the description about Batz being signed to Drake. Cobain is another name that you keep hearing circulating. So we knew that Cash was going to make the list. And on the female rapper side, I think Scarlip made a lot of sense. You know, she's signed to Rough Rider, so she's got this Wiz Beats cosign. So we knew that was probably going to be on the list too. What's really interesting though is even though the class is the Not Like Us class, clearly a nod to Kendrick Lamar's song, there's no West Coast artists on the list. So I know a lot of West Coast fans were really in the comments like, wait a minute, you can't call it a Not Like Us moment and not represent our coast. I can't wait to see the freestyles. To me, the freestyles, it's sort of like a final exam if we're going with a high school analogy. The freestyles differentiate who should stay a freshman and who actually gets their diploma and gets to graduate. There's some artists that I wasn't really excited for, but then I saw their freestyle and I remember being so impressed. Just off the top, Designer is one of those names. I remember that Timmy Turner freestyle. It went crazy viral and it just showed that he had a stage presence. He had this sort of quiet charisma that I don't think Panda really encapsulated. Freshman List has been around for almost 20 years, and even though the media landscape has changed totally since '07, it feels like the one constant. When I talk to artists behind the scenes, this is the one list that they want to be on. They see it's such a big honor and all eyes are on you, especially now when it feels like we're bombarded with so many new artists, so much new music. It's kind of nice to see sort of this curated list. Even if you've been completely ignoring hip hop for the last 12 months, you can look at this list and pretty much play catch up. Behind the scenes, people in the industry take this list seriously. When people find out that I've freelanced for XXL in the past, their managers, artists, like they would come up to me and get really mad. And I'd say, look, I don't work there. It's above my pay grade. I'm just a freelancer. But this is something people get really passionate about because it's a really good look for their artists to be on the list. Everybody wants to know, how is the list put together? This year, XXL put out a little bit of background information on how they came to the list. From this statement, as well as my own personal experience, I can confirm that it's an ongoing process. Now, historically, when they had an office space in Midtown, artists would come to the office. They would oftentimes come with their manager, with the label. They would play music. It was a way for them to connect to the staff. Post-COVID, it's a little bit different. And I have heard that XXL actually goes into some of these meetings, goes into labels to basically, again, have this conversation. It's, shaking hands, kissing babies, and just figuring out who are these artists. That's where the labels, management teams, they're presenting, okay, this is who we think would be a great candidate for the freshman class. From what I can see, the decision is made by committee. So it's not like one person just gets to make sort of these unilateral decisions. I would presume that the editor-in-chief does have the final say. Obviously, of course she would. But from what I've seen, it's very collaborative. People have discussions, people who work at XXL, That doesn't mean everyone is happy with the list. A lot of former writers have told me, hey, I really wanted this person or I really wanted that person, but I do like that it seems more democratic. Although it's a great honor, there are artists who have passed on being freshmen. Usually the reason is because they think they're too big for the list. I mean, one of the most high profile was when Drake and Nicki Minaj passed on being freshmen, and instead they got a joint cover with just them two together. Now, at the time, a lot of people felt like, look, Drake and Nicki, with their respective releases, they're already too big to be freshmen. They aren't artists who just put out one hot song or two hot songs. They're in actual bidding wars. Labels want them. They have full bodies of work. It wouldn't be fair to put them in a class with freshmen. It's kind of like the idea of like a college student coming back to high school and posing with all the students. Like, it wouldn't make sense. The problem is most rappers are not Drake or Nicki Minaj. And I think a lot of people jump the gun thinking that they're bigger than the freshman list when they're really not. It's like being in high school and taking a few college classes. No, you're still in high school. Like, you're not graduated yet. And I can think of quite a few rappers. Juice WRLD passed on the list. I know Lil Tecca passed on the list. Vado passed on the list. I mean, you can search all of the artists who have passed on the list. But to me, oftentimes those artists or their teams are just not advising them properly. Just because you have a moment right now, this is still a big honor. And I think there is something about being collaborative, celebrating with your colleagues. Like, it's okay if you got a few more records under your belt. Make sure that you still are in the moment and understanding who your peers and contemporaries are. Most new artists are simply not deserving of a solo cover. And on top of that, imagine like a newsstand, right? And walking by, is this person recognizable? You might know one record, but if I don't know what you look like, you're not going to sell copies of a magazine. So again, I think that's where a lot of times new artists and their teams are just kind of delusional. They really think that they should get a solo cover. And it's like, dude, you don't have enough credits to graduate. I do think that the XXL freshman selection process does have some issues. So a big thing is the criteria, right? And there's a specific timeline during which you have to be an active artist for you to be eligible. There have been notable moments where an artist just wasn't active during the selection period, but right after they blew up, so when the magazine comes out, it almost feels like it's missing something. Young Thug is a great example. He should have been a part of the class with people like Rich Homie Quan and Sage the Gemini, but at the time, they had bigger records than him. Of course, fast forward, Young Thug would become iconic. He would become such a cultural leader in Atlanta hip hop. But at the time, when they were deciding the freshman class, those two artists seemed like the people to bet on. So sometimes timing just doesn't work on an artist's side. The other issue is the idea of what is a major release. Now, I remember back in the day when I was having conversations with some of the XXL staff, the criteria was you could not have put out a major album. So what that meant was you could put out independent releases, you could put out mixtapes, but the minute your major label debut dropped, you could no longer be a freshman. The problem is now, what is a major label debut? What is a mixtape? What is an album? Those lines are so blurred, and I think for the average artist and the average fan, it's really hard to discern. Like, technically, is Batz already a major label artist? His mixtape was through Gamma. He signed an EP deal with Drake's OVO Records. Is he technically independent? Or is he already getting major label resources and pushback behind him, whether it's designated as a major label release or not? You know what I'm saying? The other aspect that we have to talk about is just how different the media landscape is. Back in 2007, a lot of hip hop artists were only getting coverage on hip hop publications. Now, fast forward all these years later, a lot of fashion, lifestyle, even sports publications are covering hip-hop artists before hip-hop publications. So as the artist, it gets a little bit confusing. I've already been on the cover of a fashion magazine. Do I really need to be in this group shot for XXL? They almost look down on hip-hop media. But I also would urge those artists to think beyond just this moment. Look at the XXL Freshman cover as a moment in history. You get to join this historic lineage starting in '07 all the way to where we are now. And I think that's really special. You're literally a part of history. Like, yeah, I get it. In the cover of Harper's Bazaar, you're on the cover of GQ, etc., etc. But the XXL Freshman List is a really important list if you want to be a part of hip hop. So yeah, maybe you're getting love from all these other media outlets, but don't forget your hip hop fans. Love to know what you think of the 2024 XXL Freshman class. Is this list relevant to you? Who was missing? Who would you have swapped out? Let me know in the comments.